So in the last one, we talked about all the meaty stuff of how to make the ads, the ad elements, the call outs, the call to actions, all those different things, targeting, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, okay, you got all that stuff in your brain. Well, now, how do we monetize them? And so just to be clear, there's still 4 things for the core 4. This is just part 2 of paid ads. And I separated them because last part, as you probably saw, was a little bit heavy. This one, hopefully, is a little bit lighter. All right? So this is just the money stuff. So we cover 5 things. 1 is what matters most. 2nd, how much to spend. 3rd, how to know how well you're doing. 4th, how to fix ads if you're not doing well. And finally, what I wish I knew then that I know now. Okay? So let's start with what matters most. So when it comes to advertising in general, efficiency matters more than creativity. All advertising works, right? So it's not about whether it works, which is a binary question, but how well does it work? And that applies not just for paid ads, but for any kind of advertising. And so if I can shift your perspective with that one statement, then for me, that's already a win. Because if I can get you to at least start, like if 0 people know about your stuff, if you begin advertising, more people will know about your stuff. If more people know about your stuff, the likelihood that you make money goes up. And then the more you do that, the higher the increased likelihood that you make money until eventually you do. All right, and that's the goal here. So the only things that will differ between ads is how well they work. And that is a matter of efficiency, okay? And so the thing is with paid ads more than any others, the return is clear as day. You put X dollars in and you get Y dollars out when they buy, right? And so in some of the other advertising methods like cold outreach or warm outreach or making content, sometimes the return is a little bit harder to see, right? Like you can say, okay, well, I have my team and my team costs this much, and I got this many leads, so you could calculate it that way, but it's harder to see which one piece of content did really well, or which one outreach message, which you copied 100 times, was the one that mattered, right? With paid ads, it's different. You can get laser focused on the one ad that got all of the return. And so if you want a $100 million leads machine, the goal is not necessarily to have the best advertisement ever, it's just to find the ads that are good enough to scale and scale the shit out of them. So that is what matters most, is to make sure that we're making more than it costs us to make it. That's it. And then from a benchmark perspective, and I may hit on this later, but if I don't, I'll tell you right now, it's a 3-to-1 ratio in terms of what you make over the lifetime of the customer versus what it costs you to acquire them. So if I make $100 in profit, or say $300 in profit over the lifetime of a customer, then I want to make sure that I'm getting that customer for less than $100. That's the goal. Now, if I can do that sooner, then even better. And if I can break even in the first day, or 2 days, then I can spin my money machine that much faster and scale my ads on a 1-day cash conversion cycle rather than a 30-day or a 6-month cycle, which makes much slower growth, which enables a much slower growth cycle, okay? So, number 1, what matters most is that you make more than you spend. All right, so then it's like, all right, well, how much do I spend on my ads? It's one of the number 1 questions I get when we start talking about paid ads. So let's dive into it. So as I see it, there are 3 stages to spending money on ads. The first, phase 1, is track money, okay? The second is lose money. And I purposely put it that way because you have to fundamentally lose money before you make money when you run ads. Think about it. Like, you have to spend money to get your ads out there before you make money back. And so you have to get used to losing in order to win. And one of the crazy things about ads is that in general, you will lose more times than you win. But when you win, you will win big and be able to make it all back. And so if I make 300 ads, for example, maybe 295 of them will not be winners. But there will be 5 that will be ROI positive, and 1 of them will be a home run. In that home run, I can juice the hell out of and then make the return for all of the smaller ones that I tested and it didn't work. And that's why controlling the budgeting on how much I'm going to spend for these so that you can shift the return on your investment in your favor. And so you have to get used to losing a lot in order to win big. All right? So phase 1 is you track money. Phase 2 is you lose money. And phase 3 is you print money. So let's break them down. So from a tracking money perspective, if you don't have tracking, you don't have anything. Because it would be like going into the casino and placing bets without knowing what the odds are. It's probably one of the fastest ways to get cleaned out, right? And so if you have no tracking on your platforms for how your ads are doing, you're flying blind. And as crazy as this sounds, so many people run ads with no tracking and then wonder why they don't work when they can't even see what is working to begin with. Like, a lot of times, like I see multi-million-dollar business owners who are just like, well, I spend this much, I make this much back, but I don't know where it's coming from. It will unlock breathtaking scale if you can simply laser point down onto this ad works well. Let's make more of these. So get the tracking right. Once you know that you have tracking in place so that when you run the ads, you can see where they're going, then you can go to phase 2, which is losing money. So you're like, why do I want to lose money? Because you have to in order to make it. So imagine I spend $100 on 10 ads, so $1,000 in total. 9 of them lose all 100, and then 1 of them makes $500 back for the $100 I spent. Now, if you look at that in the micro, you think, oh, well, paid ads don't work, right? Or even this campaign didn't work. Well, did it not work? Or did I get 5 to 1 on 1 and I got 0 to 1 on 9? Okay, well, I'm down 500, but then this is where so many people stop. Then they're like, well, I can't do this anymore. It's like, well, dude, you found a winner. And as crazy as it sounds, like I see this happening all the time. That's why I'm emphasizing this video. This is where people stop, but that's where you double down. And even though you just lost money and it feels even more painful to take even more money out of your wallet and risk it again when you just lost $500, that's when you find that winning horse, that one ad that's doing well and got you 500 back for your 100, and you spend 10 grand. And then you make 50. And then your $500 loss originally becomes irrelevant. So the idea is that once you find the winner, you scale it to such a degree that you shrink your loss into irrelevance. And once that happens, you enter the print money phase, right? And so if you're making back more money than you spend, the answer is simple. Spend as much as you possibly can. And so after all, if you had a magic money machine that gave you $10 for every $1 you put into it, what would your budget be? As many dollars as you possibly can fit into that machine, right? Of course. And so the idea is more so to figure out how to find the winning ad, and then as soon as you identify it, because you've tracked it well, scaling the hell out of that one, and then you don't need to worry about the ROAS or your marketing budget. So whenever someone's like, oh, we have a $10,000 a month marketing budget, I already know they don't understand paid advertising. Think about that. If they say I have this as my marketing budget, then I already know they don't understand how the ad world works, or they don't know how to work it as well as they could. Because if we're doing it right in the ideal scene, and I think I might hit on this next one, I'm not sure, but if you're doing it right the ideal way, you should be able to you put $1 in, you get $1 back, and then some. And then you can take that extra money and buy more customers with it. So you bought 1 customer and had some profit. So then you can buy 2 customers, have some profit. Buy 4 customers, have some profit. So quickly that it unlocks the skill that getting customers is no longer the bottleneck or the constraint in the business. So every business I've ever owned, getting customers has not been the constraint. The constraint has always been other things, which is like, we need more sales guys, or we need more delivery people, or we need more touch-up artists, or we need more whatever the thing is that comes after getting customers. And I can promise you, it's a much better way to live, or at least a significantly less stressful way to live, because fundamentally, if you're not making money at that point, then you have the business model is wrong. And if you are making money at that point, which you probably will be, then you've got the cash flow to fix the problems. And so once you have this skill, like I said in the beginning of the book, at the beginning of the training, it's a get out of jail free card that you can use for the rest of your life. And paid advertising is more advanced simply because it has higher risk, and you're competing with the big boys. But there's nothing that scales faster than paid ads. So once you know how much to spend, you have to figure out how well you're doing, okay? So this is gonna look a little bit intimidating. I don't want you to freak out. I use very simple numbers here, but you gotta understand this stuff. So I'm gonna break it down and just bear with me. Let's say that I have a product that is $15, all right? That's the price. You see the top arrow there? That's the price. Underneath of that, you see the gross profit, all right? Which is the difference between the price and the cost, which is $5. So if I sell something for $15 that costs me $5, then I make $10 in gross profit. Simple enough? Okay, cool. Now, if I know that the average customer buys this thing for me 10 times or buys from me once a month for 10 months, doesn't really matter. Either way, I know that my lifetime gross profit is $100. 10 units or 10 months times $10 of gross profit equals 100. Everyone following with me? Okay, that's point 1, lifetime gross profit. The reason I talk about gross profit rather than lifetime value or CLV, depending on where you look, is because I think the nomenclature can be confusing. And here's the example that I have. So a buddy of mine owned a very big, or still owns a very big food distribution business, ready prep meals. And his marketing team was coming back to him really excited that they were spending $100 to acquire a customer that would pay them $500. Okay, so you think, wow, we should scale the shit out of this. The problem was their gross profit margins were 10%. And so when they made $500 in revenue, they only made $50 in gross profit. So they were spending $100 to make $50, even though the revenue, the total price there, right, all of those together would have been $150. But we don't care about the total revenue because we have other costs associated with the thing we sell, right? And so we just want to look at how much margin we make over the lifetime of the customer and then compare that to what it costs us to make it. It's a really important point. And so right now, if you don't know the gross margins of the thing you sell, figure those out. And if you don't know what those are, you shouldn't start running paid ads. Learn those numbers first, and then you can run these like a pro. All right, so we're going to keep with this simple example here. So 10 months of purchases from a customer, or 10 units, doesn't matter, $10 of gross profit per time, $100 lifetime gross profit. Okay. Now, if we want to improve how well we're doing between what it costs us, so the CAC, cost to acquire a customer, and LTGP, what I just went over, then we have these levers. And so I have my little smiley face here. So if LTGP is greater than CAC, it means we're making money. Smiley face. If LTGP is lower than CAC, then it means we're losing money. Sad face. I was supposed to say the unsmiley face. Now, if LTGP divided by CAC is greater than 3, then you have a home run. You have something that you can scale to the moon. And that's just, again, my experience on this. Okay? So if you see that ratio between what it costs you to make money and the money you make, then you can improve that ratio. So if we want to decrease CAC or make CAC lower, that means we get cheaper customers. We do this with more efficient ads following the steps we outlined earlier. All right? That means making better ads, getting better at targeting, eliminating steps in the process, getting better at taking sales, improving split tests on the landing pages, et cetera. Those are all things that will decrease the cost to acquire a customer. Finding cheaper platforms, finding media types that get distributed more widely, all of these things. Like there's 100 things, a million things that can decrease the cost to acquire a customer. But fundamentally, that's all you're going to do to decrease CAC and improve that ratio. On the flip side, you can make LTGP higher. You can increase it. We increase how much we make per customer. And we do this with a better business model. And so one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they think they're advertising when it doesn't work, when in reality, their business model is broken. And so in a lot of ways, advertising can show you how you measure up compared to your competition. And so one of the things that I will share with you that was surprising to me is that when we had Alan, which is a software that helps agencies acquire customers for their small businesses underneath of them, we saw metrics across industries of how much it costs these agencies to acquire their small business owners. Now, what you might be surprised about is that the cost to acquire customers within the same industry was almost always within 1 to 3x of one another. So basically, you have a 3x lever on being amazing at marketing, right? For the most part, with paid ads, without a brand. Without a brand. Big, shining, big asterisk, without a brand. But if you're just running paid ads, which is what I'm talking about for right now, like the cost to acquire a customer wasn't that big. But the big difference between the guys who were crushing it and the guys who weren't were the guys who were crushing it were making 10 times more per customer. And so I'll tell you a quick story. So when I was early, like years ago, probably 5 years ago, I had a guy reach out to me who was in the same space. He was selling, we obviously worked with gym owners. He worked with personal trainers, fitness professionals, but similar-ish space. And so he showed me his numbers. And believe it or not, his sales velocity, in terms of the number of sales per month he was making, and the number of sales a month we were making, was about the same. But here's the crazy part. We made 56 times more profit than he did. 56 times more profit with the exact same number of sales. And so he came to me thinking that he had a sales and marketing problem. But the real problem was that he wasn't making enough per customer. And it was because he wasn't really that good, if we're being real. And so because he could not provide value sufficiently to his customers, he couldn't charge a sufficient amount. And so he could promise all this stuff and sell people at the same rate and same cost roughly that I was. We just made 10 times more than he did. But in gross profit, or net profit at the end of the year, it ended up being 50 plus times more money. And that is ultimately what will separate the best advertisers from the worst. Isn't even the advertising itself. You just need to be good enough to get people in and then let the business model take care of the rest. And so fundamentally, if you want to improve how well you are doing, you can focus on decreasing the cost to acquire, or you can focus on increasing the lifetime gross profit per customer. In my opinion, I like doing both. But where you get a lot of gains, unless you have a massive brand, which can drive the CAC to almost zero, the business model itself is going to be the thing that will ultimately drive. Because you can go infinitely high. Like if somebody else is competing against you and they can only spend $5,000 and you can spend $50,000, you can crush them everywhere. And in a weird way, it's almost like making an ethical monopoly. If you can outspend everyone else to acquire a customer, then you can literally price everyone else out of the market because most paid ads are based on an auction. So the platforms will auction the eyeballs off to the highest bidder. And so you can set your bids higher than anyone else can in your space and then drive up the CPMs. So that means you purposely increase your cost to acquire a customer so that no one else can. And that is how you can take over an entire market. And that's fundamentally what we've done for years now on the gym launch side. And I'm explaining this to you, I'm showing you behind the curtain because like that's how you can crush if you learn this stuff. So, and it's funny because again, I don't talk much about paid ads, but like this is how I've made the majority of my wealth. So that's how you know how well you're doing. And how you know that you need to make sure you're doing at least 3 to 1. And just for context, I said this at the beginning, but like my lifetime return is over 36 to 1. And so you can go way higher than 3. And if I'm being candid, which I will be, I try and target 10 to 1 minimum for the portfolio companies that we own. Some of our best ones are 20 plus to 1, which is great. Now, let's go into number 4, how to fix ads. So, okay, you started running ads, it's not working as well as you'd hoped. So for many businesses, LTGP is bigger than CAC, but not after the first purchase. Boo, right? That sucks. The profit from the customer's first purchase is often less than the cost to get them. That means that it can take many months to collect the full LTGP. So you get your money later instead of now, and this creates a cash flow problem. And this cripples your ability to scale, okay? So let's take back to the earlier example I showed. But if your customer spends more than it costs you to get and fulfill them in the first 30 days, then you have the funds to scale now and forever. And I call this client-financed acquisition. So let's say that we have a $15 per month membership, which we said earlier, and it costs us $5 to deliver. So that leaves us $10 in gross profit left over. Everyone's following. And let's say our average member stays 10 months. That makes our lifetime gross profit $100. Again, just restating for simplicity. If the cost to get a customer is $30, then we have a 3.3 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio. So we're over 3. Good news. Our ads make money. Hooray. But there's a problem. It's going to take us 3 months to break even. So think about this. So we spend 30, so you can see the cost line. We've got plus 10 on gross profit. It took us $30 to get it, and so we're negative 20. So we're still out 20 bucks. Was it a good ad? Yes. But are we down money? Also yes. And then next month, that customer buys another $10. Now it didn't cost us anything, so now we're down 10. And then the next month, they'd buy again for $10, didn't cost us anything, and now we're down 0. So we're break even on that third month, or that third transaction, right? And so on that fourth transaction, because I said 0 at the top, but on the fourth transaction, we're plus 10, and we're finally in the black. We're cash flow positive. So that means that you have a long conversion cycle for your cash. So you put cash out, you got to wait 3 or 4 months before you get the cash back, which means that you're limited by that amount of cash you can spend and then wait to recoup it, right? No bueno. Not as fun. You can do it, and many businesses do it this way, but the only way to do this game is that you take on debt, you sell equity, meaning investors give you money and you basically use their savings, or you use your own savings. But you have to front the money in some way because it's not coming back. And so the ways that I've scaled each of my companies without needing outside capital to scale it or taking on debt in order to get where I wanted to go was a new way, all right? And so let's say in that same example, I figure out a $100 upsell that I get 20% of people to take, okay? So whatever the thing is, 15 bucks a month, and I have a $100 one-time upsell that I offer to people, and only 1 out of 5 people take it. So not a huge deal. It's only for premium people who want some unique experience. That's great. Awesome. Well, if 20% of people take a $100 gross profit thing, then I make 20 bucks extra per person. But here's the magic of what happens. If I make that $20 up front, then I get my $10 I originally have for my membership and the $20, because it's 20% of 100, so 1 out of 5, $20, and now my $30 that I spent to acquire the customer is canceled out, which means I can then take that money back and spend it again and get another customer and keep recycling the play and then compounding over and over and over again. So rather than waiting 3 months, I can front the money on a credit card, pay the card off, and do it again. I can do this entire thing without taking any outside money on. And that's what we're going after, which is client-financed acquisition. And that's the term I use, because your clients finance the acquisition of other customers. And that creates a cash flow positive business day 1. And so rather than think, okay, I'm over 3 to 1, that is like tier 1 of level of advertising, what I would want you to get. The next tier above that is client-financed acquisition, where you're breaking even or better within the first 30 days. Because what happens is, and I have this more in the money models training, if you can get 2 to 1 in the first 30 days, or 3 to 1 in the first 30 days, then what happens is you actually compound at that multiple. So it goes 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, 16 times, 32 times. And now we're only 5 months in. By the end of the year, you have 4,000 times the amount of customers you did in the beginning if you continue to reinvest every single month. And that is how you scale. And realistically, you would probably hit a different constraint. But my whole point of this whole training is to remove getting leads as a bottleneck in the business, and this accomplishes that, okay? And so that was the fix I just outlined. I offer $100 upsell, 20% of the people take it, 20 bucks on average increases it, I break even, and then we get free customers. And then here's the cool part, is that we still make the money every month after that that was coming in before, but now it's just going straight into our pocket. Now we created a money printing machine, and that's the goal. So that's how you fix these things with client-financed acquisition. And again, that requires innovation. You just have to think, what else do these people need? And so just like you made a lead magnet that would lead naturally to your core offer, we can create another upsell that your core offer leads naturally to. It can just be a never-ending cycle of, well, there's also this other thing that you might want or might need. And the easiest upsells in the world this will be a tiny tangent, but you'll like it, is that you can sell more of what you just offered them. You can sell better of what you just offered them. Those are the easiest upsells that you can add in. You could also sell new or different, something that's complementary. So you can sell fries with a Coke, right? You can sell a burger and then add in fries or add in a Coke. And then each of those you can upsize, you can supersize them. You can supersize your fries, supersize your Coke. And so that's more, it's better. And then if you had the better version of Coke, you say, well, do you want organic Coke? So each of those, when you're thinking through how you can add something in, more, better, new, is a nice framework for adding stuff in. Now, I'm not gonna go more on that because that's a whole nother book. But if you need to add something there, just get creative and think, what else did this person want? And one of the easiest things to do is just ask them. If you don't know and you need to sell more stuff, just ask them, what else can I do to make this easier for you? And then sell that. So let's go over what I wish I knew. Number one is don't confuse sales problems with advertising problems. So we actually had a company that was struggling with this for a really long time. Basically, they scaled their advertising and we fixed problem after problem. And so it was like, first the ads weren't working, so we weren't getting clicks, and then the targeting wasn't working, so we weren't getting the right people. And then once we started getting the right people, seeing the right ads, we were getting them to schedule, but then they weren't showing up, so we fixed that problem. And we got the right people on the phone, so the right avatar. And they had all these people showing up, but then they weren't closing. They're like, this advertising isn't working. If you're getting the right people on the phone, you don't have an advertising problem. You have a sales problem. And so you want to make sure, and the founder of this company was continually like, it's the ads. It's like, it wasn't the ads. It was they didn't know how to close. Right? And so we want to make sure that the problem we're solving is the correct problem of the business. And so I just want to emphasize this. And so we spent 12 weeks, spent $150,000 in ads, but they actually threw in the towel. So I'll just give you the real, and they just want to continue doing what they were doing, which was really frustrating for me. But like about 6 inches from gold, they couldn't stomach the loss of the 150,000. But here's what's crazy, is that if they had continued, as soon as they added this second huge stream of acquisition to their business, they realistically would have added a $30 million bonus to their price tag in terms of their enterprise value. So think about the return on that. So if you spend $100,000, you spend $200,000, spend $1 million in a year testing to finally figure out a new entire acquisition channel for your business, and then that separate acquisition channel makes your business 5 times more valuable, was it worth it? I can't think of many things that are more valuable than doing that. And so like, the cost is still nothing. It's a pittance compared to the return you get on it on a macro level, not even including the money you make from the actual advertising. Number 2 is that your best free content can make the best ads. I'm repeating this because I think it's really important. And also, user-generated content, so UGC if you've ever seen that. If you can create a system where you encourage your customers to consistently make you testimonials and leave you videos or unpackaging videos of them using your product or services, when you create a machine around that, then you can basically plug that machine, the output of all those customers, directly into ads, and then you create this cycle of lots of customers see customer ads, they then make new videos, which then get run as ads, which then make more videos, and you create this flywheel effect. And the whole time you're stepped out of the entire process and just collecting your checks from pumping all of these videos. And as an aside, to wrap this point up, some of the best ads ever made were actually videos that weren't intended to be ads. They were just videos that I had made that were high quality content that got shared all over the place. And I was like, oh, maybe I should make this an ad. And the thing is, when you make an ad out of a video that the platform already likes because a lot of people are sharing it, guess what they do? They show it to even more people. So you actually get a double win. Number 3, if you say you suck at something, you will probably suck at it. don't say, I am not techie, or I hate tech stuff. It just keeps you poorer than you should be. And I said it for, 4 years. All right, and then one day I snapped out of it because I hated my website designer more than I hated tech itself. I was like, if I have to talk to this guy again, I was like, if this idiot can do it, so can I. And so 4 years of wasting time and lost money reversed with 4 hours of concentrated effort. So please just like get over it. And if you're older especially, like the tools they have nowadays are so easy. People who don't speak English can do it, all right? Anyone can figure it out. All right, so it's your turn. So this is a paid ads checklist. So number one, this is again who. This is the last of the core 4 of the ways you can advertise to let strangers know about the stuff you sell. So this is you. What you're advertising is your offer or your lead magnet, where any platform that your audience, that you can buy access to your audience on. To whom is the target audience or lookalike audience that you can sift through and add filters and interests. When? Every day, 7 days a week. Why? Get engaged leads to sell. How? Is you're going to do your call out, the 3 W's, which is the value, call to action. How much? You have your learning budget, which is track, lose money, then print money. And as an aside there, if you know how many sales you can handle, then you can reverse that into your budget until you fix your constraint. So if I know that I can only handle 20 new customers a month, and I know my average cost to acquire a customer is $100, then I know that my budget is going to be $2,000 a month. And so I can divide that out per day and say, okay, 30 days, so 70 bucks a day roughly is going to be my budget per day. Now, the budget that I'm putting there is not a constraint because of my advertising, but because of my delivery. But then I can focus all my effort on my delivery to deconstrain that, and then I can crank this up again. So you can reverse engineer it to a sales goal, which is how I do it if I have other constraints. How many? I recommend doing 30 hooks for 10 pieces of valuable content, and that'll give you 300 different variations that you can spend very small budgets on to test and quickly win, and then scale the ones that are doing well, which you can only do if you track. And then finally, how long do you do this for? As long as it takes. Because if you decide that if someone else can run paid ads in your industry, you can run paid ads in your industry. It's just a skill, and guess how they learned it? Trial and error. Like, I'm telling you, I lose so many times when I run paid ads, and it's frustrating for me because I've been doing this a long time, and it still sometimes takes 3 months, 6 months to get it to really crank all the way through from the click all the way to the close, because each time you have to fix some little element of it to make it work. And I really think it's the expectation that it's going to happen overnight that kills way more people who would otherwise be exceptional advertisers. So if you can just accept the fact that this is your learning budget, I think you will do a lot better. And so I had that little learning budget when it says how much, and it was referencing a longer story they had in the book, and I'll give you the smaller version of it now, which is, if you're doing the other advertising methods, you're posting content, you're doing outreach, warm or cold of any kind, you should be making a little bit of extra money. You should also know a little bit more about your avatar, a little bit more about your customers. You should know how they talk, how they identify with themselves. And that gives you data so that you can be more likely to be successful earlier on with the paid ads, which is why I recommend doing it last. You also should have enough cash flow from those sales to be able to spend, knowing that you're not going to immediately make the money back, to learn. And so you can take that excess cash flow and put it in there, and you can give yourself a learning budget, which is a reverse way of doing it, which is I expect to lose $1,000 a month until all of a sudden it will click, and then it will skyrocket. And that's usually how it is. So you basically lose money, lose money, lose money, lose money, and then it crushes, and then you figure it out. And so that money that you spend on advertising oftentimes will be some of the highest return money you do. It's just you have to look over a longer horizon. Like that business owner who spent 150 grand and decided not to keep going 6 inches from gold when he had a $30 million enterprise value boost that he would have unlocked. Like, you have an enterprise value boost that you unlock, you just gotta be willing to pay the price tag. And so that's what I wish I knew when I started running paid ads. And so that concludes the 4th of the core 4 for advertising, which is paid ads. Now, we're gonna talk about how to put all 4 of those on steroids.